The MMS report said there was possible cement that's been found in a nearby vessel. What do they mean by that? Is that from an explosion? What happened?
At the time of the event, Congressman, there was a vessel alongside the rig. They were conducting loading operations, transferring operations between the rig and the vessel. And the vessel reported receiving cement-like debris on their decks. And to me, that's an indication of the magnitude of the catastrophe that must have occurred within the well. For the well, the cement that's in the well, to have thrust upwards from where it was installed, up through the well bore, up to the rig, up, out from the rig and onto the deck of this vessel, I think is an indication of the magnitude of this catastrophe.
Well, that leads me up to the BOP. That would have probably caused, wouldn't it, the malfunction of the shutoff valve?
If you have cement that has traveled all the way up the well bore, all the way up to the rig, and all the way over to this supply vessel that was alongside the rig, it has traveled through the BOP for sure.
Now, have you recovered the BOP?
No, the BOP is still on the seabed.
Until we find that, we can't really tell what happened to that series of valves. There are 7 rams, aren't there, in that unit?
There are 5 ram-type preventers and 2 annular preventers, so a total of 7 shut-off devices.
The debris could have made it malfunctioning.
Yes, sir.
But until we find that, we won't know that for a fact.
Until we recover the BOP and dismantle the BOP, we won't know what sort of debris is on the inside of the BOP.
Now, that was made in Houston?
BOP was manufactured by Cameron.
Was tested?
Fully tested.
And the rumors
most recently on April 10th and April 17th.
The comments about batteries being dead and type things, how's that been verified, or is that just rumors?
The BOP control system has 2 control pods mounted on the BOP, and these pods serve to transmit the electronic signals that come from the rig into actual action on the BOP. We recovered one of those pods, one of those control pods, and under the assistance of the original manufacturer and Transocean expertise and BP observers, we dismantled that pod and fully tested that pod. There is a battery contained within that control pod. That battery was measured twice. The first time the battery was measured, it registered a voltage of 18.41 volts against the manufacturer's minimum voltage of 18. So on the first test, it satisfied the manufacturer's minimum, and on the second test, it registered 26 volts.
Now, if I can recap this now, the real damage was caused with the blowout, but then the collapse of the rig, which caused the main pipe to be laying in a trench. Is that really the challenge here? Well,
when the rig, following the explosion, the rig remained afloat for about 36 hours. It sunk on the morning of April 22nd at 10 a.m. The riser, which is the pipe that connects the BOP to the rig, the riser has remained largely intact and connected. It's obviously badly damaged, but it's laying on the seabed, and as Mr. McKay has indicated, that has presented some amount of challenge in terms of addressing the source.
Okay, but what I'm stressing is, as we go through this engineering process, there's got to be another thing other than the blowout valve to make sure that if there was another incident. By the way, did anybody know what the pressure of this field was? Was that tested? This had to be a tremendous amount of pressure to have a blowout. I mean, how do you test that?
At 12,000 feet, at 5,000 feet, it's 12,000 pounds pressure. But at 13,000 feet below ocean floor, below the mud line, it's got to be in the 100,000 pounds per square inch.
I have done a preliminary calculation, recalling 20-year-old academics. And based on the mud weight that was used in drilling the well and calculating from the rig 18,000 feet down to the actual reservoir, the pressure I calculate is somewhere between 13,000 and 14,000 psi at the reservoir.
That's a high pressure field. Did you know that when you put the mud and the cement in? I mean, is there different pressured fields at that depth? You don't know.
There are a wide spectrum of pressures resulting from overburden and poor pressure and frac gradient. There are a number of factors that that determine the pressure in a reservoir.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we could go on all day on that. My goal in this hearing is to make sure that we not point fingers. We are going to drill. I know a solution to this, gentlemen, but most of you in this room had an opportunity once, voted against drilling onshore in ANWR. We're going to drill in the Gulf because there's 24% of our oils coming, or 25%. And we must make sure we now learn from that and have that equipment available in case this does and unfortunately happen again. Like you say, 42,000 wells, or how many's been drilled, and this is the first major blowout we've had. We had one in Mexico, and by the way, following up Mr. Micah's comment, I've had contact with the Chinese because we have a huge dispute in Alaska and about drilling offshore in Alaska at 200 feet, 50 feet deep, by the way, and there's a little ice involvement. But China is already looking at the pole. And for those in the audience, there's probably more oil at the North Pole than there is any place else in the world. Just keep that in mind as Al Gore keeps talking about climate change. We don't know where it came from, but it's there. And if China drills off our shores and we have no equipment to recover because they don't really have the interest in preventing that type of spill, we have to be prepared to also address that. And I think we ought to do that off the coast of Florida, have that equipment available for whoever is